Hello, EagleSong Gardener here. Hey, we were just out at a friend's organic farm and we harvested comfrey. So that's nice pile of comfrey that you have just seen here, and I'm preparing it to hang up in the shop to dry. Why am I drying comfrey? Well, I actually use comfrey a lot. I use it for different things. One of the main reasons we use comfrey in our household is for nourishment. It makes a wonderful nourishing herbal infusion. The upper portion of the plant, and what we're putting together here today is bunches that will go out into the shop and hang in and air dry. They'll air dry over the next, it'll take quite a while, probably another week. It's been 90 degrees here, 80, 90 degrees, so that's going to speed things up. So essentially I just take a bunch like this, and I've got little strings that just loop through themselves. I used to use rubber bands, but rubber bands work really well too. You can do this with a rubber band or a string, but then in the shop it'll be hooked up like this to dry. I like to air dry the plants because it just really keeps the flavor really nice. All right, so I'm just going to sit here and talk about comfrey and just have you visiting while we're doing this. So I'm taking the bottom leaves off here because this is such a long stalk, and I have a small pile. These will just be air dried on a rack, and the rest of them. And you can see here that this comfrey is already pretty much done blooming. So the flowers are pretty finished. It's well along in its growth habit, and also it's large. It was 4 feet tall when we harvested it. So I'll just keep bunching here, taking off these lower leaves to dry separately. So the energy right at the moment has just gone into the flowering part. The stalks are really strong, and so the stalk is really useful. I see here there's a little spider web on the bottom. So the stalk holds the plant up. I like to include that into my herbal infusion when I'm making the herbal infusion through the winter, because that's where the phosphorus is in the plant right at the moment. It holds the plant up, just like our bones need phosphorus. The plant needs phosphorus to hold itself up. So we keep the stalk in with the plant material that's going to be dried for the infusion. All right, not too many stalks in each bunch. This is a really fleshy herb, and so we want to be sure there's enough air flow around it so that it actually dries well. And the stalks are thick. It takes a while for these stalks to actually dry. And notice we're just using the upper part of the plant here. This is the only part that I use internally, and I've been using it for the last over 40 years. And we have a lot of, I think the biggest thing that I can say about comfrey is how much pain relief I've seen it bring to people with broken bones. Actually, the fellow that we harvested this at his farm has just had knee replacement surgery, so he's using the comfrey, drinking it in infusion, drinking it with a tincture, and that's really going to help relieve the pain in his knee and also to speed the healing. So we have two benefits with comfrey. It's a great healing herb, but it's also just a great nourishing herb. Symphytum officinalis is the botanical name for comfrey. Symphytum is like a symphony. It brings things together. It creates wholeness out of diversity, and so that's one of the things that I love about botanical names. They can also tell us a lot about the plant and how it was seen earlier on in time when they were naming the plants. Knitbone is a common name, which definitely helps us to know that this is a plant that was used for working with the broken bone. And so these are things that I like about working with herbs. There's a lot of story medicine along with the physical medicine of the plants that makes it interesting to me. Hey, Sally, you actually used comfrey for your dad when he broke his ankle. What happened with that?
So we made up gallon jars of dried comfrey, and we actually used the dried comfrey root, and we poured hot boiling water over that and let it steep. And we would soak his ankle, and this was after the cast was off. It was still very painful for him, so we soaked it, and then because he also had sciatica, and so we would make poultices with the comfrey that was left over, the mark left over from the steeping, and we would apply that to his back, and he liked it warm. And we were there visiting about maybe 3 to 4 days, and by the time we left, he was there was a substantial amount of relief from the pain.
All right. So just topically, you actually use the root at that point as well as the tops of the comfrey?
Yeah, I used the root and the top.
And that was for topical application, not for drinking internally.
That was, yeah, just for topical application.
Oh, right. Yeah, there's a question about drinking the root, taking the root internally. You know, I've seen such good results from the tops, using the tops, that I don't feel any compulsion to use the root for anything at this point in time. And so there's a constituent called a pyrrolizidine alkaloid that is in the comfrey, and it seems to be more in the root than the tops. So we've just taken to actually using the tops pretty much exclusively for internal and external use. And if we were actually going to use the infusions for drinking, we would only use the tops. So that's been working for me really well for the last 40 years. I use the plant for people, animals, our livestock. We use it a lot in the livestock as a feed. We add it to their feed. The geese are really loving it this year, and the goats are enjoying it. So a lot of this trimmings that we have will go out to the livestock that are here. We also make a powder with nettles and comfrey and seaweed. Thank you, Juliette de Berkeley-Levy. The nettles, comfrey, and seaweed blend comes from her work, and I've been using that for 40 years with all the animals that I've tended over time. So this is an amazing herb. It's great for the garden. You can make a tea out of it and use it in the garden as a plant food. So there's just a lot of ways to use comfrey. I really appreciate having it in my garden, and would love to hear from you. What ways have you used comfrey that have worked for you? You can actually post little notes below here on the YouTube, and let us know what you're doing with comfrey. I just have heard so many amazing stories about comfrey and the way people use it in their lives, that I just want to keep comfrey in our hearts, hands, and homes, because it's one of the herbs that you can use pretty much safely, as long as you remember just use the upper portion of the plant. All right, so that's it. We're going to have blog posts and other things about comfrey at EagleSong-Gardener.com. So be sure to check out our website. And I'm going to be signing off from Ravencroft Garden. See you down the road.